Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Packer Universe podcast. We're a Green Bay Packers fan podcast that brings you topical and relevant Packers news along with our most humble, subjective opinions. This is a Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. I am joined by my co-host, Ren. He's right there. He can't point yet. But today's special, Ren, we are doing our first takeaway because it is roster cut down day, and you're going to get our reaction to it. So, welcome, Ren. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great today. I mean, there are things that happened today that I know a lot of the universe freaked out about a little bit. We're talking about the back end of rosters. I've heard some things leading up to this day that literally every team across the NFL today picks up less. It was 0.883 guys from other teams off the waivers every year. That's how little these transactions really make a difference. Like, anybody that you're worried about, Packer Universe is worried about, your grandma's worried about as her favorite Packer, it doesn't matter. Likely the ones that did get released that we want back are going to be back.
Okay.
It is what it is. There might be a guy or even two this year that end up on another roster. In the end, it really doesn't matter, Tay.
Well,
so there's not massive like cry in your pillow. They IR'd Tyler Davis, our warrior of special teams, is once again not going to be back. I think we'll get over it.
All right, Ryan. Well, don't get ahead of ourselves here. I just want to set the table for the Packer Universe. People that are maybe just tuning in for the first time. We're just two casual guys talking about the Packers every week. We're trying to do video now, so I'm glad you're here. And if you're listening on the podcast version, go to the YouTube channel, Packer Universe, and check us out there. We had the last preseason game, which was last Saturday at noon against the Ravens. It was a much better game than the Broncos before that. And we were looking at this game, the Ravens game, as kind of a telltale game that would show us the position battles, quarterback, running back, some safety, maybe wide receiver, and then linebacker, kicker, especially
O-line depth.
O-line depth. So we were. It was set for us to watch all of that. And we had a generally good game. There were 38 starters. I'm calling them starters that were not suited up playing in that game. But, we don't have to discuss the Ravens game too much here. This is the roster cut down day. This is Tuesday when everyone had to be at 53. Like you said, there was tons of people out there that were cut or waived. And let's go through the Packers roster. But first we have to rewind till yesterday, Ren. Catch Packer Universe up on what happened with the QB situation.
Well, Tay, I thought we were going to break here, and you're going to give me some good audio with other people talking about, Malik Willis being traded for off the, couldn't beat out Mason Rudolph. We know he's been in Pittsburgh for a few years, Tay. This is a guy who was the third pick in the third round 2 years ago by the Tennessee Titans, was looked at as a potential starter in Tennessee. Obviously, before they bring in their young quarterback last year, it's just one of those things. He's got 4.4 speed. He's got a big arm, not so good with the accuracy piece, but kind of worked his way out of, Tennessee. They call him a Deshaun Kaiser type. We know the Packers clearly traded for Deshaun Kaiser once upon a time, Tay. That did not work out. But this is Green Bay Packers. This is the backup, Tay. He came from a system in Tennessee that is similar, and it's going to take a couple weeks to get, him into the playbook. But he definitely offers things that Michael Pratt and Sean Clifford simply could not bring to the table at this point. And I think, for a seventh-round pick, Tay, listen, anybody who complains about a seventh-round pick for a guy that's drafted a couple years ago in the third round, don't. I don't think Sean Clifford or Michael Pratt were even close to the answer to be an actual quality backup. We'll find out if Malik Willis is. But I think, hey, they had to make a move. I know people will look at it today and they'll see the Brett Rippins of the world, the the Bailey Zappies of the world, and they'll wonder, hey, should they just waited for today's cutdown day and then through tomorrow with waivers to claim somebody like that? But clearly, they pegged a guy with similar traits developmentally to maybe Jordan Love a couple of years ago with that big arm, with that outside of the pocket mobility, things he can do. But he's got a lot of stuff to clean up in his game. And hey, a little bit of time with Tom Clements, who knows what they can find. But I mean, in the last preseason game, which this guy, Tay, I have to point the wrong way and do this, was at the game on Saturday. Sean Clifford had a 29.32, I believe, quarterback rating in the first half, Tay. It was brutal. I understand they were rotating those guys, but the reality is Clifford, he regressed massively into his second year here. And Michael Pratt, while a rookie, as people kind of dug through this stuff today, Michael Pratt didn't seem, and there's multiple occasions people bring up with Stenovich, with LaFleur, talking about him understanding the playbook. So what does this mean? Either he's not smart enough to, or maybe not willing to put in the work necessary of somebody you want to be the backup quarterback. So that begs a lot of questions. And they said, you know what? After, obviously, the game on Saturday, Matt was asked about it, is the guy on the roster? And he basically said, we'll see what happens. We're going to look around the league, essentially paraphrasing. And they did exactly that and said, neither of these guys are good enough. And anybody out there in the universe that's really concerned that they may or may not get back Michael Pratt and or Sean Clifford, I think needs to massively slow the roll and go, hey, at the moment for a 7th-round pick, you just improved the quarterback room.
Ren, I think this kind of comes back to where we were at going into training camp. All of Packer Universe was like, okay, this battle for QB2. We know our guys, the incumbent Sean Clifford, and then you have Michael Pratt, the young rookie who has a lot of promise, and we were just set on that. Like I was set on that. I'll be the first one to say I was wrong. You were right, and you said that they might bring in a veteran quarterback. I was like, no, they're too cheap for that. They're gonna use what they have on the roster. They're gonna go with that. But after the 3 preseason games and all training camp, they said, oh no, we cannot do this. So yeah, and we all kind of felt that, but we're like, well, I guess they're gonna have to pick one of them, right? Like we kind of just still felt that. We knew that, we kind of figured that was going to be the outcome. Well, it wasn't. And so honestly, I'm surprised that they did this, but having Malik Willis is, I think better for the Packers too. I kind of liked Willis. I used to remember seeing him in the preseason, him come in after, I don't even know who, the Tannehill or something like that. I know we played him in the preseason.
Was Tannehill, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
They've got Will Levis out there now and
sure.
Mason Rudolph, but yeah.
Well, I remember watching this guy. I was impressed when I saw him in preseason. So I'm kind of stoked about this. I'd rather have Malik, be the QB2 versus 2 guys we weren't sure were going to cut it for the job anyway. And we I know you kind of had that sentiment. Like, I don't trust Clifford or Pratt in there. And so just hand it off to some guy that might be able to and has a strong arm. I love your comment on his mobility. He can move in the pocket. I think he looks like Russell Wilson sometimes. He can evade and scramble to make plays, and I love that. So I think this was a good move. These quarterbacks that we had, just weren't getting it done, and the Packers did something about it. So I'm pleasantly surprised at that outcome. And then there were rumors today that, like, hold your roll. Everyone thought Pratt was going to be on the practice squad, but I think it looks like Sean Clifford might be the one pegged. And then you're thinking, what? Why? Well, he knows the system. Maybe they want a system quarterback. And that just maybe lends you to a easier transition with knowing the guys and all that stuff. But we're talking practice squad quarterback here. So it's like, again, to your point,
bingo,
it's like whatever, but we were invested. My point was, we were invested in this quarterback 2 situation for a long time. And then I'll just have it switch on us, whoa, kind of, shakes us a little bit. But I think this was a great move. I love it. I'm looking forward to seeing Willis. I mean, obviously we shouldn't see him, this year, right? at all. Like,
honestly, it's like you don't ever want to see him play. The reality is, Tay, you hope he never plays.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. But being that you have a backup, you definitely want somebody who's has the ability, has played in some actual NFL games that you can bring along and can maybe be serviceable for a game or two and potentially win you one of those. And at this point, I don't think Sean or Michael certainly gave the Packers front office any real good feels that either could do that. And I know it goes against the grain with Brian, what he said, we want to get back in the, quarterback development piece. But
the
reality is the writing's on the wall. This team has to compete. They're ready to compete for a Super Bowl title. And they can't just mess around with this stuff and be like, oh, we're just going to go with the guy who might make it. No, this is real time. Let's go with a better option. And they did just that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's a good sentiment to have before draft, pre-draft, or during the draft after you've taken somebody. Yeah, that's what Brian's right on. Like, do that. But it didn't work out, and he was like, I need to make a change. Now, I wish he would have done that for the whole kicking situation over the last 2 years, but I digress. But let's get into it, Ren. Let's get into the offense here. I'll just flash this on the screen, and you can talk about maybe some of your first reactions to. We can just go right down. Actually, I don't have the special teams on here, so my apologies, audience. We'll just cut right to that special teams. Anders Carlson gets cut. Like, hello, like about time. Like, I was like, yeah. I was
okay.
cheering.
Let's go, Tay. I'm going to be Jim Rome. I know you have a lot of Anderson feels, so I'm going to be Jim Rome. Tay, react to me. Tell me your Anderson feels when you got this morning.
I mean, I was thinking the same thing about the quarterbacks as I was about the kickers. They're going to keep their guy, take their person that they had grooming and then just force them into that position. And that's what we were getting last year. I was like, no, he's got it. He's a rookie. Like, don't worry about him missing kicks and losing us games. It's fine. Next year will be great. Fast forward this training camp, he's kicking and he's not doing great. Bringing in a veteran, still not doing great. Veteran's not doing great. And then we were just like, okay, well, it's got to be one of the two, right? It's got to be one of the two. And then to have he missed that kick on Saturday, this like his second one, because he made the first one, which was a longer one. I think it was 56 or something. Then he misses a 36, and it's like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like Joseph was better that day, so they made the right decision. They cut Anders, and I couldn't believe it again. I honestly thought they were going to stick with their guy, but they didn't. Thank you, Brian, for making the right decision. You can go get an Anders anytime you want. Like, you can get that percentage kicker anytime you want in the league. It's not a problem. But I'm glad they weren't sticking to their boy, and just like dragging us through along with him to see if he would even work out. So I applaud you, Mr. Goody. Thank you. If Joseph doesn't work out, that's fine. He might not be on this roster by the end of the year, Ren. It doesn't matter. You made the right choice now to move in a direction that will help you succeed.
Say, I don't know if Greg Joseph will be on the roster in 2 days, to be honest, as they work through the waiver wire tomorrow. We'll see. It'll be an interesting thing. It's always going to be a thing. But I said to my wife, watching the game, you're there Saturday, and that it wasn't even a 36-yard. I believe it was a 32-yarder, Tay.
Oh, okay.
And I think extra points are 33 yards. Nobody quote me on that one, but it's right in that vicinity.
26.
And yeah, it's in the 30s. And when he missed it, I'm like, damn, I don't know if this guy just lost his job. I said it out loud. I'm like, that's a bad look. And sure enough, man, I think that just told them the biggest issue with Anders Carlson is you want a kicker who I think, at least in Greg Joseph, they know like something out to the 40 yards and in, they're pretty sure he's going to make it, right? But we saw with Anders last year, there are extra point misses at times. They're field goals, 40, 41, 42, 43 he'd miss. They're just saying.
Uh-oh, we lost Ren. He's back, but he's still talking.
And it's a little bit of a Rich Bisaccia thing. Like, Rich Bisaccia, I think, is an excellent assistant head coach, but I don't know what the hell he's doing with, and I told you this, who is going to have a guy, who's going to be one of the other guys, coaches on the hot seat this year? It's going to be him. And I think he's on the hot seat today. I really do. They pay him a lot of money to develop somebody. We saw no development from this guy. I mean, sure, he can maybe be like, look at me when it comes to Danny Whelan, because that guy just rocket balls it. He has been amazing. You know, he was in last year as a first-year punter. They might have found a punter for I don't know how many years today.
For life.
Because Danny can boom it. But, you know, up and down, Matt Orzich, we got Peter Bowden, you know, I don't know, but this Anders Carlson thing, I know his family. Anders wasn't good in college either, Tay. He was wildly inconsistent. Guess what he was as a professional in, you know, his first basically 2 seasons, well, 1 and 1 quarter, inconsistent. May he become his brother, Daniel Carlson? He might, but not at this point. And it's not time. It's not time to mess around with that. You need to know a guy is going to make you kicks 40 and in and not think about it. And he couldn't make the Packers feel that way, or me, or especially you.
Me, this guy right here. I love it. I love it. Well, let's move on around to the rest of the offense here. I'll put this on the screen. We already talked about the quarterbacks, but let's move down to, I guess it's not down to the right here, the running back situation. Shocker today, I think that was one of my probably top 3 shockers to me, was A.J. Dillon was put on IR with no designated or designation to return. So A.J. Dillon is on IR. I doubt he'll be with the team anymore. He'll probably take an injury settlement because his stinger that he's been dealing with, it was like the second one in like 9 months or something. And he might get an injury settlement and go away forever. It's too bad, but we'll see. I will be shocked if he's still on the team after the season and able to play next year. But A.J. Dillon gone, which means Marshawn Lloyd, Emmanuel Wilson are the backups behind Josh Jacobs. Marshawn Lloyd was kind of rumored to be maybe put on the PUP list for 4 games being out, but that didn't happen. So that's promising. And, you know, he might not play, you know, still, you know, the first week or 2. And that's where you'll see Wilson, but Marshawn Lloyd, you know, is number 2. I want to point out here, I think that they have in there, when you go to Packers.com and see the roster cuts, I think they've listed them in order, Ren, for depth chart. So I think when you're looking at this, they think Lloyd is the second one. Obviously Wilson is the third, but we might not see them in that capacity at that time. So I guess it is time, Ren. I got to take poor AJ off the wall, because we won't see AJ. AJ, I will miss you. Hopefully you'll be back next year, but I doubt it. So good luck up in DC. We'll miss you. Hey, anything you want to say? Anything you want to say to AJ?
No, you know, Mr. Door County has been a great Packer ambassador. Maybe they can fold him into, you know, just building that Packer brand somehow and give him a cushy job. But I think AJ's time, very, very likely in the NFL, has run its course. It's unfortunate. We saw him actually, maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't at the game. He was walking around the stadium, took a tour, high-fiving, signing autographs, maybe a little kind of knowledge to what was happening.
Did he know?
I think he had a very good idea with that. But onward and upward, we wish him the best. And listen, I'm glad Marshawn is going to be available. You know, they didn't have to use roster spot number 2 for this, which is new this year, Tay. You can designate 2 prior to cut downs with that IR to return, meaning they have to be on at least 4 weeks. So they only use that 1 on Ford, but we're still on offense here. So a couple things of note for me. Obviously, Grant Dubose does not become wide receiver 7. Do I think he'll end up on the practice squad? I do. Ben Sims they only kept 3 tight ends. I thought Sims was my guy outside the other 2, so that doesn't surprise me. I would say on the back end of the O-line piece, Kadeem Telfort, and especially Travis Glover, the draft pick. Glover was rough in the preseason, Tay. You want to talk about a candidate I don't think earned a roster spot? and I understand that, the whole Caleb Jones experiment had run its course. So I'm not saying they had to keep Caleb over Travis. They had spent, 3 years on that developmental piece, and likely, practice squad guy. But Travis Glover, oof. And hey, at least no Royce Newman, because that guy can't play football anymore. So there is that. Again, the little bit of the Dubose piece was slightly surprising. Not entirely. Are they really going to keep 8?
No.
Or 7, I should say. No, they're not. But outside of that, not a lot of surprises. Again, I didn't think Travis Glover earned himself a roster spot at this point.
Yeah,
draft pick or not.
The way I think about that is it's a draft pick. Maybe they see something and know something that we don't, and I've got to think that's the case here. Sometimes that's happened in the last several years that we've been doing this, Ren. Yeah, they'll be like, I know it's a draft pick, but why are you keeping that guy? And maybe that's why. Maybe he's got something special.
Maybe they see the development they saw in Caleb Jones 3 years ago.
Right.
Like, oh, he could be something, but we got to give him time. He is a mountain of a man as well, and they want to spend that developmental piece on him.
You mentioned before Tyler Davis is on IR, not designated to return, so we won't see him this year. Honestly, maybe you know more than me about it, but I don't think Ben Sims is on the roster if Tyler Davis can be on that roster. So I think that's where it would have went.
I don't know, man. I think Ben played really, really admirably down the stretch when it was kind of the Tucker Kraft show and the Ben Sims show when Lucas couldn't be there last year. So I liked what I saw about Ben Sims, and I think they're in a really good spot with the 3 they have on the roster at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, in the wide receiver, Malik Heath, he deserved it. He played really well. I'd like to see Grant DeBose on the roster, but maybe for another time. Samari Toure, bye. Like I just don't see anything out of him. So they've got plenty of dudes right now that can be on this roster in the wide receiver core, and hopefully a lot of them take a step forward. So I can't wait for that actually.
Yeah, and having obviously Bo there. I mean, Malik played better down the stretch than obviously DeBose did. DeBose had a really exciting first couple weeks of camp and then kind of fell off. But Bo Melton's kind of your other field.
Ren, you kind of you are freezing up right now, so just hold off. Technical difficulties. I bet you Ren's phone is probably about maybe 3%, maybe 2% right now. If he comes back online, he can get. Oh, there he is right now. But I would guess that Ren's phone is probably at 1% now. He just used all the juice zooming in on his face there. Yeah, there we go.
Tay, I honestly don't know that. I have 35%. Little weirded out by that. I never disappeared off the screen when you said that. So on my end, I can still see you.
All right, we'll trudge through here, Ren. It's okay.
All right, let's get to defense, Tay.
Let's get to the defense here now, and nothing here really was super shocking. From the defensive tackle position, the inside linebacker situation, the defensive end. I think Mosbeer, he played excellent on Saturday in that preseason game. I think he basically got his roster spot by his performance on Saturday. So congratulations, Aaron. I mean, props to him. He had a great game. And I think, he obviously, I think he kind of beat out, who do I want to say? Christian Welch for a roster spot. And I think that was one of those that we all kind of thought would make it 2, but he didn't. Inside linebacker, they kept both rookies, and then they kept around Eric Wilson. When you get to the cornerback position, we kind of knew all those 5 were going to be there. Rochelle was maybe a bubble, but clearly him and Kalen King hopefully will go to the practice squad. Safety position, this is where I guess my defensive kind of came in here. They kept Keaton Oladopa and they kept Zane Anderson. And they waived or released, Anthony Johnson Jr., which was shocking to me. I thought Anthony Johnson Jr. had an amazing game on Saturday. I was for certain he was going to make a roster spot. But Zane Anderson, I think is, the consummate special teams player. and that's probably exactly why he's on the team. And then, Keaton, he's a rookie, and maybe this is that Glover on defense, Ren, where, we want to keep him on our team. We're afraid to lose him, or we see something that we need. But when you have 3 rookie safeties making the roster, I don't know. I just think that's kind of strange, especially when you saw what Bullard and Williams could do. I just didn't think Keaton there's room for him. And I think there was room for Anthony Johnson. But maybe Anthony just didn't perform well or fit into their special teams unit. And that could be the simple answer to this. But that was a little shocking to me. I guess, I don't know, what do you do? But those are kind of my few takeaways from the defensive side of things. What about you, Ren?
The 6 defensive ends is crazy, Tay. I mean, we thought maybe Brent makes it. They bring 6, and we really thought it'd be 4. And I think everybody else said that. I mean, 6 was just kind of unheard of at defensive end there, because most of those guys are never going to see the field. There's a good chance that when they dress guys game day, that both Brenton Cox Jr. and Aaron Mosby are not in dress. I mean, it's just crazy. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think you get Mosby back in the practice squad, no problem. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The cornerback thing too, knowing that room being as thin as they are, Kalen King had a great camp, showed a lot of fire, came up and wraps up as a willing tackler. I don't get it, Tay. I really don't. I think he earned a roster spot. Definitely through play of the entire preseason over Mosby, who flashed at the end. Again, in a spot they're thin at cornerback. Keaton Oladapo, sure, you drafted him, but you have one other IR to return piece. Just use it on him. You only used one. We know they use that on Ford, who I'm not really that high on as a player in general. Oladapo did obviously nothing all season, but that they keep him, it's like, I got to worry about my draft pick here. Who's going to even, if you cut him, take Keaton Oladapo? They have no tape on him. Maybe, but unlikely. That one I just don't get. Why, you're talking about AJJ went on the roster and Keaton gets it. I have no idea why. It doesn't make sense because they had a couple options for him, and the guy was just literally non-existent throughout the entirety of training camp and mini camp. So that one is like, okay, Packers brass management, I don't understand quite the thought process behind Keaton Oladapo. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. Good comments on that. I think you're right. So most of this roster cut down was anticipated or expected. A couple things here and there, but as far as we're concerned, the core roster was there. We knew it was going to be there, and I think we're more than happy with it from what was available. And we're mincing little slices here of the secondary roster, and I'm glad we were in this position this training camp run. I think we mentioned it before it even started. Like, we're in a good spot here if we're going to be, slicing hairs over the second quarterback and, the third or fourth outside linebacker, inside linebacker. But our criticisms about like, hey, why did you pick that is only because of the depth situation. And that injuries are going to be coming, and you want to set yourself up for the long run, because there's a good chance this team could go a long way in the playoffs. And I know a lot of these guys you think can help us there. There'll be a lot, there'll be some roster changeover towards the end of the year, and maybe there'll be guys on the team now that aren't here, and we'll see some new faces. But that's just how it goes. So I'm pleasantly surprised at this whole roster cut down. Couple interesting tidbits here and there, but I'm generally pleased.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're 17 guys are coming back tomorrow. Today, again, they have to go through waiver day. Essentially, that's not tomorrow; it's the day after. But the practice squad will round itself out, and almost all those guys who want it back are going to be there, minus one, maybe two. So it's not a big thing. It's not something to get uptight about for any of the universe. It's just the same thing every year. Most guys don't go to a practice squad on another team. It's very rare. They're going to be in good shape. The only thing I would say is, watching waiver wire is Greg Joseph, the kicker, come 10 days from now. That part, to me, will be the big one.
Well, we've got, yes, like you said, that game coming up in 9 days, 9 days, no, 10 days, 10 days, a week from this Friday, Ren. And it's the game in Brazil. It's I guess an away game, but it's kind of home. We'll see about that. So I'm getting stoked for that. We've got a roster now. We got a roster set, Ren. We've got a whole week to think about it and to digest that and get ready for the week 1 matchup against the Eagles. And in regards to that, we'll be on in a couple days. We'll have another episode out with a special guest on. You need to stay tuned for that. You're going to want to listen and hear and watch that. So please keep following Packer Universe podcast. Go to YouTube channel and follow us on there. And I'm putting these videos and our podcast is up on our website, packeruniverse.com. Don't be afraid to engage. Send us an email, info@packeruniverse.com. Love that you guys are supporting us, watching all of our content. And that's why we're here. We're here to talk Packers and just indulge ourselves in the pack.
Yeah, looking forward to our conversation Thursday with a new guest and going to get a lot of insight into Brazil and maybe some roster cut downs and everything Packers related, Tay. So until episode 285, Tay? 86? On the pup list.